Hello, everyone. Welcome to Inside the Americas. Here's what's coming up in today's show. Clinton and Trump win big in Super Tuesday 2, but Ted Cruz, John Kasich, and Bernie Sanders are refusing to give up on their White House dreams. Plus, as U.S. President Barack Obama prepares for a historic visit to Cuba this weekend, we'll look at what residents in the city of Guantanamo make of the detention camp there. And as Cuba grants increasing liberties to the LGBT community, we see how drag queens no longer have to perform in secret. This week in the U.S. primaries, Trump and Clinton won big, Kasich took Ohio, and Rubio dropped out. Rochelle Harrison-Pless has the details.
If Florida was a make-or-break battle, Marco Rubio's dreams of the White House are well and truly broken. The Republican senator suffering a crushing defeat in his home state, forcing him to drop out of the race.
Tonight it is clear that while we are on the right side, this year, we will not be on the winning side. America's in the middle of a real political storm, a real tsunami, and we should have seen this coming.
It now leaves Republican frontrunner Donald Trump to fend off Texas Senator Ted Cruz and Ohio Governor John Kasich. The billionaire tycoon won decisively in the Sunshine State, but also in Illinois and North Carolina. However, his momentum took a hit on this so-called second Super Tuesday. Kasich claimed his first primary win in Ohio, setting up a long and potentially chaotic three-way tussle for the GOP nomination.
We put one foot in front of the other, and I want to remind you again tonight that I will not take the low road to the highest office in the land.
Meanwhile, Democratic frontrunner Hillary Clinton continues her winning streak, clinching 4 states. Although she's claimed more than half of the delegates needed for the nomination, political rival Bernie Sanders has no intention of leaving the race. But Clinton's eyes are already on the bigger prize. She's focusing on a potential showdown with Trump.
When we hear a candidate for president call for rounding up 12 million immigrants, banning all Muslims from entering the United States, when he embraces torture, that doesn't make him strong, it makes him wrong.
The Donald is also causing a headache for his own party, with many senior Republicans staunchly against him and his controversial rhetoric. An independent conservative group has launched an anti-Trump campaign, which hopes to put the brakes on his march to the White House.
Lots of news out of South America this week. Murdered miners in Venezuela, a diplomatic spat between Argentina and China, and a bit of back to the future for a former president of Brazil. Take a look.
Brazil's former president Lula da Silva is tipped to be making a return to the government of his protege Dilma Rousseff. The cabinet appointment will partially shield him from prosecution by transferring money laundering charges against him from a federal court to the Supreme Court of Brazil. A potential return by Lula to public office 8 years after leaving has been dubbed by critics as a desperate attempt to shore up support for Brazil's embattled president, Dilma Rousseff. A Chinese vessel fishing illegally in the South Atlantic was shot at and sunk by Argentina's Navy. This after the boat failed to respond to warning calls in Spanish and English and instead tried to ram the Navy vessel. All sailors were rescued, but 4 have been taken into custody. China has expressed serious concern over the incident and has called for an investigation. Beijing, meanwhile, has expanded its long-distance fishing fleet in order to meet surging demand for seafood. Frustrated taxi drivers took to the streets of Colombia to demonstrate against the taxi booking app Uber. Thousands brought traffic in the capital Bogota to a near standstill. Authorities arrested 16 people and close to 200 fines were handed out after the protest turned violent. Traditional taxis are calling for Uber to get out of Colombia.
They don't have restrictions. We are allowed to travel downtown twice a week, depending on our license plate. Yet Uber charges what it wants. They have no regulations.
Authorities in Venezuela have opened up an investigation into the alleged killing of 28 miners in the southeastern state of Bolivar. Relatives of the miners say they were murdered by members of a gang seeking to control a gold claim. They allege dismembered bodies were put into a truck and were taken away. The state governor has denied the massacre took place, but families and witnesses have accused law enforcement of participating in the killings.
This weekend, Cuba will welcome the first American president on its soil in 88 years. Barack Obama is making the historic visit as part of his plan to renew relations with the island. But in the Cuban city of Guantanamo, many locals are hoping President Obama will follow through on his promise to shut its infamous prison down. Deeptika Laurent reports.
Guantanamo, not the U.S. naval base. Not the notorious U.S.-run prison, but the city. It's home to nearly 250,000 people, overlooking the Caribbean Sea on the southeast coast. Many locals here are hoping that Barack Obama's visit, the first by any U.S. president in nearly 90 years, will help shut down the prison that's given their city a bad name.
Fidel said it from the beginning. The strategy to make sure the naval base of Guantanamo Bay be returned to its rightful owner will always be through talks and in a peaceful manner.
The U.S. has leased Guantanamo Bay since 1903 as a coaling and naval base. In 2002, then-President George W. Bush opened the notorious prison on the base to house terror suspects during the war in Afghanistan. Today, there are still 91 inmates languishing there. Retiree Ruddy Rodriguez used to work on the naval base. He believes that even Americans want to see the prison shut down, so they'll be able to come to Cuba.
If we were a powerful nation and the United States weren't, and we could set up a military base, how would the Americans feel if we set up a naval base in Hudson Bay? That is how we feel here.
Obama has faced an uphill battle to close down the Guantanamo Bay prison. Last month, he presented a plan that would transfer the prison to 13 U.S. sites, arguing that it would cost taxpayers less. The Republicans rejected the proposal, saying it would bring terror suspects onto U.S. soil. Not helping Obama's cause, a recent report that found an increase in ex-detainees joining jihadist groups to fight against the U.S. and its allies. For those in Guantanamo, then, they'll have to put up with their recently reunited neighbors, for the time being at least.
Next, after years of persecution following the revolution, gay and transgender people in Cuba are seeing a shift in their country's attitudes. And drag artists no longer have to perform in secret. In fact, they're taking center stage in Havana, as Delano de Souza explains.
With the help of his mother, Nolan is putting on the finishing touches to his costume. Makeup helps him transform himself into his alter ego, Sahira. Later tonight, she'll be performing at the Las Vegas Cabaret in Havana.
The first party I went and performed at was in 2001, when I was in military service. I liked it, but I always had stage fright. I never thought I'd do this.
Transvestites and homosexuals were persecuted in the country following the Cuban Revolution in 1959. Along with others considered suspect by the communist government, they were sometimes sent to grueling labor camps in rural areas. But since Fidel Castro handed over power to his brother Raúl, things on the island have slowly started to change.
This was very hidden because we didn't have a space. We didn't have the freedom to say what we did or perform at a theatre like we can today.
LGBT rights have come a long way thanks to one member of Cuba's ruling family. Mariela Castro, the daughter of the Cuban president, has become the island's most vocal advocate, heading up Cuba's Center for Sex Education.
Mariela imagined a world where a community of transvestites, gays, bisexuals, lesbians could finally come out and have no reason to be afraid or hidden.
As a Member of Parliament, Mariela Castro continues to push the gay rights agenda. Last year, she voted against a bill which she felt didn't go far enough in preventing discrimination against people with HIV or unconventional gender identities.
Cuban society is progressing in this fight. Each time more and more people support us, and they gather round us.
Since 2008, the healthcare system in Cuba began offering gender realignment surgeries for free. But the fight for equal rights for Cuba's LGBT population is far from over. A bill to legalize same-sex civil unions is currently under study.
And as Cuba continues to rebuild ties with the U.S., France 24's culture team went to check out the capital, Havana. Despite years of diplomatic exclusion, the arts have always been strong ambassadors for Cuba. Our Olivia Salazar-Winspear caught up with leading lights from the worlds of music, dance, and cinema. We'll leave you now with some pictures from that show, which airs next Monday at 12:15 p.m. French time.